Well, hello and welcome to our summary video for our Marella Voyager series, which a cruise we took in December 2025. In a lot of ways it was similar to one we did at the same time in 2024 on Explorer, but the itinerary was different. We went from East Midlands Airport instead of Birmingham. They're both local to us. We live in Derby. East Midlands is about 20-25 minutes away. Birmingham Airport's an hour or so away. So neither of them are difficult to get to. But obviously, given the chance, we fly from East Midlands. But the two airports don't always fly to the same destinations. So last year we flew out of Gran Canaria, and Gran Canaria, at least at this time of year, isn't served from East Mids, whereas Tenerife is. So this time we flew from East Midlands to Malaga and then back from Tenerife to East Midlands. When we flew to Marmaris, which we think was the previous time we flew out of East Midlands, we used a valley type parking where you park in a certain space, you hand the keys in, and then your car is ready for you when you come back. That's great if you're coming in late at night, because that car park or pick-up drop-off area is very, very close to the terminal building, only 100 yards or so you've got no distance at all to go. And when we came back from, I think it was Rhodes in about 2017?
Probably.
We got back at something silly o'clock in the morning because East Midlands flies 24 hours a day potentially. It was cold. It was very cold compared to what we'd just flown out of. It was raining. It was bitterly cold. We were in one of the car parks that was a long way away, and we had to wait for a bus. And we were stood with a lot of other people, getting cold and damp, just waiting for one of the shuttle buses to turn up. Anyway, this time we were not doing that. We were flying out of East Mids to Malaga and then back again from Tenerife. We were going to get back at a reasonable time in the evening, so we decided, since we hadn't got to go too far out of a way to go, we'd stay in Midstay 2. And it was pre-booked, and as typical these days, you put the registration number in, which we had to change because we had to change the car. The old one blew the engine up, and we had to swap it. But editing the registration number was absolutely no problems whatsoever. And we drove in, went to the barrier, waited a couple of seconds, the barrier went up. We drove around, found a parking space without a great deal of difficulty. But like a lot of car parks, it's quite featureless, so I took a few photos to make sure we could find it again.
We were nearly at one end, which made it easier.
It did, yes. But I still had to have a look at my phone when we got back, just to remind me, even though it's only been a week. The drawback was it was about a 10-minute walk to the terminal building. Now, for us, 10 minutes walk is not a great problem, and it's reasonably flat, and it's not a great problem, but some of the tarmac footpath surfaces are not very good. So as we were taking the cases to the terminal building, obviously including the whole baggage, it was in places quite difficult to pull. Like when you were moving, it was hopping and bouncing around, very much like the late Sir Terry Pratchett described seeing a lady's suitcase which had inspired his character in the Discworld series, called the Luggage, which was a trunk on lots of little legs that shuffled and bounced around a bit. That was the only problem with it in either direction. When we got to the terminal building, it was straight in. Soon found the TUI check-in desk, didn't we?
Yeah.
Didn't really have any problems at all. We didn't bother booking fast track security this time. We'd done that before and that worked very well, because there were queues that day, but this time, although I didn't, I think it would have been a waste of money, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there weren't any queues, but when we did, that was May, was it?
Probably.
So it was probably busier anyway.
Yes, that would make sense, that it was a bit busier. But yeah, we got through airside, absolutely no problems, whatever, and it was just a case of waiting to be called to the gate. And we took off about on time. The weather wasn't wonderful, and it was a little bit bumpy as we took off, but once we got above the clouds, it was smooth enough. Bit of a shame, because on the way out to Venice for the Queen Victoria cruise in August, it was clear all the way. Some wonderful views of the ground as we flew in, but no, it was absolutely fine. We got to Malaga straight away there. We were very lucky actually, because when we flew into Malaga in 2024, several planes had landed together and there were all these passengers all piling through the immigration side at the same time, and it was full. When we got there this time, there was hardly anybody there, and we just went straight through, even though they were partially implementing this new electronic system, although not completely. We didn't take a fingerprint, so they just took photographs of us in the passport. So yeah, we got through that all right, and then it was really a case of just going and finding the rep and getting on the bus, and off we went.
Yeah, and that was easy enough.
Yeah, embarkation was extremely smooth. Where did we get the cars?
Were they in the cabin or outside the cabin?
I honestly can't remember. Yes, it was, because we when we got on, we had to go and do muster, and we used the printout boarding thing, didn't we? Or little QR code. That's right. So embarkation was smooth. Went and found our cabin, and that was quite a surprise, wasn't it? Because in terms of the cabin itself, it was absolutely fine. Bit smaller than one we had on Discovery in 2024. Very similar to what we had on Explorer last year, but the balcony was much bigger. And later in the cruise, when the weather wasn't quite so good, it was still useful, because you could pull the chairs right back, and they were shaded by the screens that separate the adjacent cabins, weren't they?
Yeah.
And you could get pretty much out of the wind. You might need a coat on, but it wasn't unpleasant. Cases turned up very quickly. Didn't have a problem with that. I think they were there when we got pretty much when we got upstairs. Did we go in the kitchens and get something to eat first, or did we go up after we got to the cabin? I genuinely can't remember. I think we got one case, and then we went upstairs to the kitchens for something to eat. Came back, and the other case was outside. Food quality in the kitchens wasn't bad. It isn't cordon bleu, but very few cruise lines are in their buffets, whatever they're called. I like the kitchens though, probably one of the better buffets in my opinion. I loved the food station. There were food stations on one of the others, weren't there? But
this was all served pretty much.
it was nearly all served, which was different. But then again, if it's not a problem for the most part, because let's face it, keeping norovirus at bay is exactly what you want to be doing. Food quality in the kitchens, I think, was quite reasonable. The various food stations were absolutely great because it made it ever so easy to find whatever you fancied, whether it was pizzas or Asian or pies and chips or roasts or whatever it was at various times of the day. You knew exactly where to go, didn't you?
Yeah.
We've been on some ships where it isn't clear, and you can be hunting all over to find that section that's got that particular thing that you're looking for. But that was really, really good, and I think Marella got that absolutely spot on. One thing that's changed, I'm sure, since in the last 12 months, is that Voyager had grind to cup coffee machines in the buffet, and they were open and available pretty much 24/7, I think.
Yes, whenever it was open,
Yeah,
you could
use it, and they were free.
Better than the not urns, but
Well, they were, old on Discovery. That was pretty grim. That was coffee that was just made and put in these urns by the gallon and left around the ship, and it used to end up being either cold and or stewed. But no, this was fresh. Although you could only get Americanos, wasn't it? Or was it Americano cappuccinos, or was it just Americanos?
I think it was just Americanos.
You could have white ones or black ones, but you were restricted. If you wanted anything more than that, you got to go to Coffee Port. And if you're not on the premium package, and we weren't, you got to pay for it. Now, on Explorer and on Discovery, we thought the prices of the coffees were very good. I think they still were quite good, but they'd gone up significantly, and it meant that it made you pause. So instead of going to Coffee Port, which definitely was a much nicer quality of coffee, even these new machines in the buffet, the extra cost has gone up by something like £1 a cup, which doesn't sound a lot, but it was like, I'm sure on Discovery it was like £1.70, and on this one it was more like £2.70. So it made you think a little bit, because we can get through 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee and what have you a day, no trouble at all. So we used to go for the fresh coffee in the buffet wherever we got the chance. We did go down there to get a hot chocolate before we went to bed, because theirs were nice. The only place you could get those. But apart from that, we tended not to bother. As far as the main dining rooms went, Latitude 53, it was very mixed. We were too late on the first night when we embarked, and so we went in on the second day, which was the formal night, wasn't it? Dressed to impress. And I didn't want to go up to the buffet dolled up. So we said, okay, we'll go in Latitude 53. And on Explorer and Discovery, we never had a bad meal. And Explorer, just like Voyager, had come out of dry dock in Cadiz to come round to Malaga to go off to the Canaries. So I don't know what on earth had happened, but that meal was probably the worst meal I've ever had almost anywhere, and certainly at sea. Whether it's Marella, Princess or Cunard, I've never had anything. The main course, I had this saltimbocca pork, and I ate it, but I didn't enjoy it, and I ought to have left it. The problem also was on that first night that the waiters didn't ask you how it was. They didn't come and check, which again was unusual. So, having had a very disappointing meal, we then went on to the show lounge and saw quite a good show. And then when we went back to the cabin, I sent feedback about the meal. And Marella make that very easy. It's on the app, which is an onboard app that you use from the Wi-Fi portal. And you don't need to register for that. And there's a feedback section, and you can give them feedback. Normally they're quite good. And I was a bit disappointed. I didn't get anything for a couple of days. We didn't go back the following night. I think it was 2 nights later we went back in again. And the food, it's got to be said, was much better, and the service was a lot better. But they made what turned out to be a grave mistake of putting on Christmas dinner. You know, Christmas comes early, full Christmas dinner with all the trimmings, and everybody
as far as the turkey went.
Yeah, as far as the turkey went. So they came and took our orders, off they went. We were in a bit of an alcove at one side of the dining room, and there were about another 4 or 5 tables of 2, weren't there?
Yeah.
In that little bit.
Yeah.
And the starters came, absolutely fine. Enjoyed those, and the staff were more attentive. And they took them away, and we sat there, and they kept coming back saying, "Really sorry, there's delays in the kitchen. Well, would you like another drink?" and all this kind of thing. Well, in the end, it was something like an hour before ours came out, and ours were the only ones to come out.
And we were one of the first in the dining room.
Yes, we were. We actually were outside before they opened the doors in the queue. So, what on earth was going off in the kitchen, I have absolutely no idea. But I mean, we'd finished our main courses before the other tables in our little bit started to get theirs at all. I think they must have just woefully underestimated how many people were going to want it, and they just got the timings completely around the necks. Luckily though, things improved. We had a meal in Vista, which is the Italian included restaurant, which is upstairs from Latitude 53 on one side. There's Piccadilly's on the other, which we didn't use. We thought the menu looked very pretentious for, people loved it. To be fair, I've seen a review of it saying how great it is, but to me it sounded a bit twee and pretentious, so we didn't bother. But we'd been in Vista on Explorer and on Discovery and loved it, and this was just as good. We had a great meal in there, didn't we? Really nice meal. And then the next day, we got back to the cabin, and there was a note asking me to ring reception to make an appointment with the hospitality team to discuss my feedback, which we did. Went downstairs, and this lady came up. She was one of the maitre d', and I got the distinct impression that the feedback had been pretty brutal, and it wasn't just us. There'd obviously been a lot of complaints, and it isn't an excuse, but she admitted that there'd been a big changeover of staff. Communications had got completely unravelled within the kitchen, so that had to be sorted out. They instituted some more training, and they'd also had to tell the wait staff that it was okay to go and ask if the meal was fine. And this is a problem that I came across when I worked at the University of Nottingham. We had a lot of Chinese and Middle Eastern students, and also sort of Indian, Pakistani students as well. They have a concept that Brits don't, called effectively what we might call face. And it means, in academic terms, I can say to a student, right, this is what I want you to do, and I can explain it to them. If I say, do you understand? Even if they haven't got a clue what I've said, they will say, yes, they have. Because in their world, if they tell you they don't understand what you just told them, they're calling the lecturer an idiot. And they have to sort of get that out of the waiting staff. But it's got to be said, we went back in on the last night, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
And we had an absolutely superb meal. You'd have been pleased with it on any cruise line, that meal. So obviously it took them a few days, but by the end of the week, things were starting to hum. So that's great. And I think the fact that Marella makes feedback, positive and negative, very easy to give, that's credit to them. I mean, if you give them positive feedback, of course, that's obviously better, but you always get an acknowledgement to it. And you're asked all the time. If somebody goes over and above, let them know. And that's important, whether you do a post-cruise survey or whatever. And we'd had superb service from our cabin crew, which was Raja, Prayesh and Amari. And they were lovely people, ever so nice, always spoke to you, wanted to know how you were going, but what were you doing today kind of thing, just general chit chat. So I left very positive feedback, and the next morning, as you normally get a little card, but you just kind of pushed under your door. There's a knock at the door, and there's Raja, the team leader, and he's got this card in his hand, and he was going, oh, thank you very much, this is wonderful, thank you so much. He was so grateful that we'd done it. So I think it really is important, because I believe getting a lot of positive feedback like that can do them an awful lot of good. It can increase their rates of promotion, it can get them better accommodation, and all kinds of things like that. The entertainment, I thought the entertainment on the whole was pretty good.
Yeah.
Varied a wee bit. Some we liked more than others. But something we didn't get on Explorer last year was a Christmas show called Christmas at Sea. And it was kind of split into two halves. The first bit was Christmas themed, sort of singing and dancing. The second half was a kind of pantomime, and the cruise director, Scott, who, showing me age, made Larry Grayson look butch. He was a lovely fella, he really was. He was incredibly enthusiastic about his job. But he played the pantomime dame, and oh boy did he have fun with that. He was so outrageous with it. It was hysterical. And they do this skit on the 12 Days of Christmas, based on Marella, which was extremely funny. And he was dashing backwards and forwards and doing various things. And at one point, he completely lost his balance and went down on his face really hard, just went down like a tree. And when he got up, one of the two balloons he got under his dress had gone. And he looked down and saw how lopsided he was. He went, "Oh well, never mind." He went bang and just did the rest of the whole thing flat chested. But he was really funny. And at the end of the show, as they always do, some of the cast stand near the exit so you can have a chat and tell them, well, I think always how much you've enjoyed it. And I said to Scott, "You're looking a bit deflated, pal," and he just laughed. Said, "Yes," he said, "I have to go and blow some more up for the second show." But yeah, one thing Marella really does well are their shows. They're not as polished, they're not as technical as you find on Princess. You don't have live music like you do at Cunard. But what you do get is 12 different shows on a 2-week stretch and cycle over and over again. You get one night off every week when they have a guest entertainer on. But otherwise, they do a different show 6 out of the 7 nights over the 2 weeks, and then they repeat. And those showcast guys, they really, really, really work hard. They're absolutely superb. Disembarkation was okay. You get a coloured tab for your cases, when you put them out the night before, and that tells them which bus you're going to be going on or what flight you're going to be going on. And they're lined up somewhere, as always. And you come off the ship for the last time. In the case of Tenerife, you walk up the dock to a little building, and the cases were all there. And normally there would be a one-way system. They'd let people, be able to regulate people going through. But the locals had erected some tents, hadn't they, for something or other that was going to take place later in the day, and completely screwed up the area. So it was a bit of a free-for-all, but it didn't take long to get on the bus and away we went. And this is where it gets really bizarre, because we get to the airport and a woman gets on the bus and she says, "Are you guys expecting to go on a Chewy flight?" And we're like, "Yes." And she says, "They've all been cancelled." "Oh. You're flying with Jet 2. "Oh." She said, just go to their check-in desk, it'll be fine, it's all sorted. Well, she obviously went to several more buses, because there must have been between 200 and 300 people suddenly descended on the Jet 2 desks. They're all going, "We should have gone on TUI. You're supposed to be expecting us and putting us on flights." And they go, "What?" And they kept saying, "Well, our system should refresh and start showing you what we're going to do with you." Well, we waited around there about 5 minutes, and the queue's getting ridiculous, because we say 200 people that should be going on TUI have suddenly arrived, and there's still people going on Jet 2 flights anyway. So in the end, say 5-10 minutes, they said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to go to our inquiry desk and try and sort it out there, because otherwise we can't process our own people." Well, by now people are getting really fed up. 1 or 2 people, I think quite unreasonably, were getting a bit hot under the collar, weren't they? Trying to get quite aggressive with the people at the desk. But they were doing the best. They got no idea what was going on. And in the end, somebody had the bright idea of actually ringing up Chewy and asking what was going on. And it turned out they hadn't been cancelled. We should have gone to the TUI desk in the first place. What that woman was doing, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know whether she got the sack and she was having revenge or what. But the disadvantage was that Jet 2 more or less at one end of the concourse, and the TUI check-in were right at the other end.
Yeah.
You had a 5-minute walk to get from one end to the other. But luckily, we got plenty of time. So when we get there, there's nobody waiting because we'd all been up the other end of the airport for a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. So we shot through check-in, out to the gate on the plane without, apart from me losing me boarding card. Yeah. Got printouts of the boarding QR code, and as I went to get mine out, it slipped through my fingers and then just floated off over a handrail and down onto another level below. So luckily I also got it on my phone, so and I got a roaming signal so I could pull it up and still get on the plane home. But we didn't have any problems with that. We got on the plane. We were a little bit late going, weren't we? Missed the slot, and then there were a few coming in. We were a little while before we took off. We weren't too
it wasn't
late.
that much.
No. And we had a slightly bumpier flight, I think, coming back and we did going out, but it still wasn't bad, was it? And landed at East Mids. Absolutely flew through immigration again. Picked the bags up and wandered back to Mid-State 2. Found the car after a little bit of a hunt, and then just drove to the barrier again. The cameras picked the number up, barrier went up, away we went home. So all in all, it went very well. Really, as all our TUI cruises have. And we're flying again in August when we're going to Discovery 2 for a week's cruise in the Med, because there's an eclipse and we should be seeing that at sea on the second day. It's in the evening, so hopefully after we leave Palamos we'll be out at sea and we should be able to see the eclipse from the ship. But yeah, I think overall it was a successful cruise. There were a few things like the main dining room that were a bit of a disappointment to begin with. But otherwise, no, I think we were absolutely fine. The vast majority of things worked very well, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, thanks for watching the series. And if you've got any comments about the vids, please feel free to let me know, good or bad. I don't mind. I can't change anything if I don't know that I'm not doing what people would like me to do. And please like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and bye for now.